If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and let us know what city you're watching from. Let's continue. Ryan Thompson had always believed that success was born from skepticism. Not the crippling, unhealthy paranoia that paralyzes, but the constant vigilance, the keen eye for details that others overlook. At 52, he had built a hotel empire that spanned 5 major American cities, starting in New York, where it all began 30 years ago. The Grand Elysian, his most luxurious hotel, stood majestically in Midtown Manhattan, a tower of glass and marble that reflected both the sunlight and the ambition of its creator. Ryan came from humble beginnings. The son of a seamstress and a bus driver, he grew up in a small house in Queens, where money was tight and dreams were a luxury few could afford. But he had something money couldn't buy. He had hunger. Not for food, though he knew that well enough too, but a hunger to prove he was capable, a hunger to transform the reality he inherited into something entirely different. He started out working the front desk of a second-rate hotel when he was 18. He worked the night shift, studied during the day, and slept whenever he had the time. He watched everything: how guests were treated, how operations ran, where the waste was, where the opportunity lay. In 10 years, he went from desk clerk to manager. In another 10, he had his first hotel, small but his. The rest was a history of relentless work, the right decisions at the right time, and an almost supernatural ability to sense when something was wrong. But something was wrong now. Ryan felt it in his gut, in that deep place where intuition speaks louder than numbers. The financial report showed minor inconsistencies, losses that seemed insignificant when viewed in isolation, but together formed a disturbing pattern. They weren't amounts that threatened the empire, but they were fissures, cracks in the structure he had built brick by brick, contract by contract, sleepless night by sleepless night. He spent weeks poring over spreadsheets, questioning managers, reviewing procedures. Everyone had reasonable explanations. A little waste here, inventory adjustments there, normal market fluctuations. But Ryan hadn't gotten where he was by accepting reasonable explanations. He'd gotten there by distrusting them. It was on an August morning, with the city still wrapped in a haze that stubbornly refused to burn off before 10 a.m., that he made his decision. He was alone in his office on the top floor of the hotel, looking out at Park Avenue in the distance, when he realized something too obvious to have been ignored for so long. People lie to those in power. They lie because they want to please, because they want to protect themselves, because they know the truth can be costly. So, the only way to see the truth was to stop being who he was, temporarily at least. Ryan called his assistant, Carla, the only person he trusted completely after 15 years of working together. She answered on the first ring, as always. "I need you to arrange something for me, very discreetly," he said, keeping his voice calm and controlled. "I'm going to check into the Grand Elysian for 2 weeks, as a regular guest. No one can know who I am. No one, Carla. Not management, not the front desk, not the housekeeping staff." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Carla knew Ryan well enough not to question his decisions, but even she seemed surprised by this one. "I understand, Mr. Thompson. I'll arrange everything. What name should I use for the reservation?" He thought for a moment. "Charles Miller, a businessman from upstate in New York City for the first time on business. Someone ordinary, discreet, who doesn't draw attention." Over the next few days, Ryan meticulously prepared his new identity. He bought different clothes from what he usually wore, nothing too flashy, but nothing too simple either. Good quality suits, but without the Italian brand names he normally favored. He swapped his Swiss watch for a discreet American-made model. He let his beard grow for a few days, changed his haircut. When he looked in the mirror on the morning of his check-in, he barely recognized the man staring back at him. The Grand Elysian welcomed Charles Miller with the impersonal efficiency that characterized high-end establishments. The receptionist smiled politely, checked the fake IDs that Carla had flawlessly provided, and handed over the key to a room on the 12th floor. No presidential suite, nothing to draw attention. A standard executive room, comfortable but not ostentatious. Ryan went up alone, refusing the bellhop's help with his small suitcase. Upon entering the room, he felt something strange. It was his hotel, but it wasn't. He knew every detail of this place because he had personally chosen the decor, the furniture, even the lighting. But being there as a guest, without the weight of his identity, changed everything. It was like seeing something for the first time that you've been looking at for years. For the first 3 days, Ryan observed everything with the patience of a predator. He had breakfast in the hotel restaurant, watching how the staff treated the guests. He had lunch at the pool bar, paying attention to the employees' conversations when they thought no one was listening. He dined alone in the main restaurant, mentally noting every flaw in the service, every moment of excellence. And the flaws were there, small, almost imperceptible, but they were there. A waiter who deliberately took longer to serve certain customers to get bigger tips from others. A housekeeper who took new toiletries from less used rooms to take home. Nothing major, nothing that would justify immediate termination, but signs of an organizational culture that was beginning to fray. But that wasn't what was deeply bothering Ryan. These small transgressions were human, expected to some extent. He would fix them, but they weren't the heart of the problem he felt existed. It was on the 5th night that something shifted. Ryan was in the hotel lounge, sipping a whiskey while pretending to read emails on his phone, when he overheard a conversation between 2 women from the events team. They were speaking quietly, but not quietly enough. "Did you see the new girl from the kids' club?" one of them asked, a tall brunette in a flawless uniform. "Maria." The other, a middle-aged blonde, replied, "Yeah, I saw her, poor thing. Looks like she's carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders." "I know, right? But she works like a machine. I've never seen anyone so dedicated. Comes in before everyone, leaves after. She barely even stops for lunch. Must really need the job." "Who doesn't? But she's different. There's something about her, you know? A sadness in her eyes that just breaks your heart." The conversation trailed off as they moved away, but something in those words snagged Ryan's attention. The hotel's babysitting service was a key feature, offered to high-end families staying with children. The professionals had access to rooms, safes, personal belongings. Absolute trust was essential. Any failure there could destroy the reputation he'd spent years building. Ryan decided to investigate. Not obviously, but subtly, like everything he did. He spent the next few days observing the hotel's children's area. The recreation space was on the 2nd floor, a colorful, cheerful area where guests' children could play under supervision while their parents enjoyed the hotel's services. That's where he saw her for the first time. Maria Sanchez, according to the name tag discreetly pinned to her navy blue uniform. She looked to be in her early 30s, with brown hair pulled back in a perfect bun, her delicate features marked by an exhaustion that well-pressed clothes and discreet makeup couldn't completely hide. Her brown eyes held something Ryan couldn't quite define. It wasn't exactly sadness, but a quiet determination, as if she were fighting an invisible battle no one else could see. Over the years, Ryan had learned to read people. It was a skill that came naturally to someone who'd spent decades negotiating, hiring, firing, and dealing with all sorts of personalities. He could spot liars, opportunists, genuine people, but Maria was different. There were layers to her he couldn't penetrate with just casual observation. She was too professional, too contained, like someone who had learned to hide what she felt because showing it would be dangerous. She interacted with the children naturally, not forcing her cheerfulness, but being genuinely present. A little girl of about 5 had spilled juice on her dress and started to cry. Maria knelt beside her, cleaned it up carefully, spoke to her softly until the girl calmed down, then took her to change her clothes without making a fuss, all with a patience that seemed infinite, but visibly took a toll. Ryan watched as she handled a hyperactive boy who wouldn't sit still, then helped another child with a puzzle, always aware of everything around her. There was an economy to her movements, as if every gesture was measured, calculated to expend the minimum amount of energy. Not out of laziness, but like someone who knows they need to conserve their strength because the journey is still long. During her lunch break, Ryan saw Maria leave the hotel quickly. She didn't go to the employee cafeteria like the others. She crossed the street and bought a sandwich from the corner deli, eating it as she walked back, making the most of every second. Ryan knew that kind of urgency. He'd felt it when he was starting out, when every minute mattered because time was money, and he had very little of either. But in Maria, the urgency seemed different. It wasn't ambition. It was raw necessity. Ryan observed for 3 days before deciding to test her, not out of malice, not out of specific suspicion of her, but because he needed to know. He needed to understand if what he was seeing was real or just a well-constructed mask. In the business world, he had learned that everyone wears a mask. The trick was to find out what was underneath. The plan was simple and cruel in its simplicity. Ryan requested the babysitting service for an afternoon, claiming he had to leave for business meetings. He invented a fictional child, a nephew who would be staying with him. The front desk accepted without question. Maria was assigned to the job. Ryan prepared the room meticulously. He left cash on the desk, not a fortune but enough to tempt someone in dire straits. $400 in $50 bills, as if forgotten there. He scattered. A few valuable-looking objects on the dresser. A watch that looked expensive but wasn't. Designer sunglasses. An imported pen. In the bathroom he left a French perfume, still in its box. Everything was strategically placed, all appearing casual but carefully calculated. Then came the hardest part. Ryan needed to be present to observe, but invisible. He used the bathroom of the adjoining suite, which he kept vacant for precisely these kinds of discreet situations. He left the door to his room ajar, just enough to get a partial view of what was happening inside. Maria arrived promptly at 3 p.m. She knocked on the door, waited, knocked again. When no one answered, she used the master key she carried for emergencies, announcing her presence in a clear voice. "Hello, Mr. Miller? It's Maria, from the kids' club. I'm here to look after your nephew." Silence. She entered cautiously, looking around. Ryan could see her through the crack, every movement, every expression. Her face showed confusion when she realized there was no child in the room. She took out her phone, probably to call the front desk and confirm the mistake. But before she could dial, she seemed to decide to wait a few minutes. Maybe the guest was running late, maybe the child was on their way. Then Maria did something Ryan didn't expect. She started to tidy up the room. She didn't touch anything important, but she straightened the pillows, smoothed the bedspread, picked up a towel that had fallen on the bathroom floor. Her movements were economical, efficient. She saw the money on the desk. Ryan watched with surgical focus. Maria looked at the bills, seemed to consider something, then picked up a hotel notepad and wrote something down. She placed the note on top of the money and continued tidying. She saw the watch, the sunglasses, the pen. She moved them only as much as necessary to wipe the surface of the dresser, putting each one back exactly where it had been. In the bathroom, she noticed the perfume. She picked up the box, examined it like someone appreciating something beautiful but unattainable, then placed it back carefully. 15 minutes passed. Half an hour. Maria glanced at her own watch, a simple, cheap model that contrasted with everything around her. She picked up her phone again, about to call the front desk, when the device vibrated in her hand. Ryan saw the instantaneous change in her face. The expression of serene professionalism shattered like glass. She looked at the screen, hesitated, then answered with a voice that tried to be firm, but trembled at the edges. "Hello? Yes, this is she. Yes, I'm his guardian. What? When?" A pause. "Oh my God. No, I understand. Yes, I'll be there. I'm coming now. Please, just do everything you can. Please." There was a long silence from the other end. Maria listened, and Ryan could see tears welling in her eyes, though she fought them back with all her might. "How much?" Her voice was almost inaudible now. "How much time do we have? No, I know. I know it's not simple. I'll figure it out. I promise. I'll get the money. Somehow I will. Just, please, please do everything possible." When she hung up, Maria stood motionless for long seconds. Then, slowly, as if each movement cost immense effort, she walked to the wall and leaned against it. She pressed her forehead against the cool surface. Her breathing was ragged, broken. She brought a hand to her mouth as if she could physically stop a sob. From escaping, Ryan had never felt like such an intruder in someone's life. He wanted to look away but couldn't. There was something profoundly human and devastating in that moment. A woman falling apart in silence, in a hotel room that wasn't hers, trying to maintain her composure because her job demanded it. After a few minutes, Maria pulled herself together. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand, took several deep breaths, and straightened her uniform. She became the impeccable professional again, or at least she tried. She picked up her phone and called the front desk. Her voice was controlled, just a little hoarse. "Hi, it's Maria. I'm in room 1215. It seems there's been a mistake. There's no child here. The guest isn't here either. Must have been a scheduling mix-up." "Yes, I'll head back to the kids' club." "Thank you." Before leaving, she looked around one last time. Her eyes landed on the money on the desk. For an instant, just a fleeting instant, something crossed her face. It wasn't greed, but something more painful. It was the sharp awareness that those $400, so insignificant to whoever had left them there, could make a crucial difference for her. But then she looked away, grabbed her bag and left, closing the door carefully behind her. Ryan waited 5 minutes before re-entering the room. Everything was exactly as he had left it. The money, the objects, all untouched. He picked up the note Maria had left on the bills. In small, neat handwriting, she had written, "Mr. Miller, I left your money in a visible spot on the desk. Please keep it somewhere safer. Have a good afternoon, Maria Sanchez." He held that piece of paper for a long moment. He had conducted the test to find dishonesty, and had found the opposite. But more than that, he had witnessed something that bothered him in ways he couldn't name. A woman maintaining her integrity at the worst possible moment, when it would have been so easy, so justifiable even, to do otherwise. Ryan knew he should feel satisfied. He had confirmed that at least one employee was trustworthy, had character, didn't take advantage of opportunities. But what he felt wasn't satisfaction. It was a deep unease, a discomfort that settled in his chest and wouldn't leave. He spent the rest of the afternoon trying to distract himself with emails, reports, numbers that usually absorbed him completely. Nothing worked. His mind kept returning to that moment. Maria's expression when she answered the phone, the way she had broken down and then pieced herself back together, the contained desperation in that call. As night fell over New York, turning the city into a constellation of lights that stretched as far as the eye could see, Ryan made a decision. He had to know. He had to understand. Not out of morbid curiosity, not to satisfy some compulsion to control everyone and everything around him, but because something about that woman had touched something in him he thought had died long ago. He called Carla. It was late, almost 10 p.m., but she answered immediately, as she always did. "I need you to look into someone for me," he said without preamble. Discreetly, "Maria Sanchez works in the kids' club at the Grand Elysian. I want to know everything about her. Family situation, employment history, anything relevant." Carla was silent for a moment. "Is there a problem, Mr. Thompson?" she asked, and there was genuine concern in her voice. "No," he replied, but he wasn't even convinced himself. "I just need to know." "I'll get on it. I should have something for you by tomorrow afternoon." Ryan spent the night unable to sleep properly. He lay in the dark, listening to the muffled sounds of the city that never truly sleeps, thinking about ajar doors and desperate phone calls, about dignity preserved when it would be so easy to lose it. He thought about himself, about the man he had become over the years, hard, calculating, driven by numbers and strategies. When had he stopped seeing people as people, instead of resources to be managed? The Atiku. Next morning, Ryan had breakfast in the hotel restaurant, watching Maria from a distance. She was in the kids' club, playing with 3 small children. From where he sat, he couldn't hear what they were saying, but he could see that she was smiling, interacting, doing her job with the same dedication as always. Nothing in her demeanor suggested the personal crisis she was facing. She was a perfect actress, or simply someone who had learned to survive by separating her personal and professional life with a determination that bordered on superhuman. The day passed slowly. Ryan tried to maintain his routine of observing the hotel, but his eyes kept drifting back to the second floor. to that colorful area where children played, and Maria cared for them with a patience that seemed infinite, but visibly took a toll. At 5 p.m., his phone rang. It was Carla. "I have the information you requested," she said, and there was something in her voice that Ryan couldn't immediately identify. Something between professionalism and something softer, almost sad. "I can send it via encrypted email, or would you prefer I read it over the phone?" "Read it," he requested, sitting on the edge of the hotel bed and bracing himself. What Carla told him in the following minutes changed everything. Maria Sanchez, 34, originally from Rochester, raised in a middle-class family that fell apart after her father passed away when she was 17. Her mother, a teacher who retired on disability, lives in a nursing home in Poughkeepsie because she needs constant care. Maria has a son, Gabriel, who is 7 years old. The child's father disappeared when he found out about the pregnancy, never provided financial support, never tried to see the boy. Ryan listened in silence, each word fitting together, like a piece of a puzzle he didn't know he was assembling. "Gabriel has a rare genetic disease," Carla continued, her voice softening. "Something that affects his vital organs, requires constant treatment. Maria is raising him alone. She worked as a pediatric nurse at a public hospital until 8 months ago when she was fired. She had to miss too much work to take her son to appointments, hospital stays. The hospital wasn't flexible." "And the boy?" Ryan asked, though a part of him already knew the answer. "His condition has worsened recently. He needs urgent surgery. It's very expensive." "Mr. Thompson, the public health system has a waiting list that's far too long. The boy can't wait. Maria is deep in debt trying to cover the basic treatments. She's been working at the hotel for 3 weeks. It's the only job she could find that offers some scheduling flexibility, but the salary is still not enough for the surgery." "How much?" he asked, his own voice sounding distant to his ears. "How much is the surgery?" Carla named a figure. By Ryan's standards, it was insignificant. It was equivalent to 2 days' profit from the Grand Elysian. For Maria, it was impossible. It was the difference between her son's life and his loss. Ryan thanked her and hung up. He sat on the edge of the bed, staring without seeing at the lights of New York beginning to switch on as the day died outside. For the first time in many years, he didn't know what to do. He had built an empire by being calculating, by making decisions based on logic and return on investment. But this wasn't a business matter. It was something much more complicated and much simpler at the same time. Helping Maria would mean breaking down barriers he had carefully erected over decades. It would mean admitting that people mattered beyond their utility as employees. It would mean feeling again, and Ryan was terrified of feeling. But he had seen it. He had seen a woman preserve her dignity when it would have been so easy to lose it. He had seen someone maintain her ethics even as her world was crumbling. And something about that, something in that brutal, silent honesty, had cracked the armor that had protected his heart for so long. Ryan stood up and walked to the window. Down below, New York pulsed with life. Millions of people, each with their own invisible battles, their own silent despairs. Maria was just one of them, but he had seen hers, and now he couldn't look away. The question wasn't whether he had the power to help. He obviously did. The question was whether he was willing to pay the emotional price of that help, whether he was ready to be human again instead of just a successful businessman. As the night swallowed the city and the lights multiplied like fallen stars on the earth, Ryan Thompson made a decision that would change 3 lives forever. He didn't know exactly how he would do it yet, but he knew he would, because some things he was beginning to realize mattered more than numbers on a report. Some things required a different kind of courage than he was used to. For years, Ryan had protected himself through distance. He never got too close to anyone, never allowed himself to feel too much for anyone. He had learned that feelings complicated decisions, that compassion could be mistaken for weakness, that in the business world, those who hesitate for emotional reasons end up losing. He had built walls so high around himself that he sometimes forgot there was an outside. But Maria, without knowing it, had shown him a crack in those walls. And through that crack, something had gotten in. Something he hadn't felt in so long, he barely recognized what it was. It was empathy. It was the painful realization that someone else's suffering mattered, that some battles shouldn't be fought alone, that having power also means having a responsibility to use it for something beyond accumulating more power. Maria hadn't asked for anything. She didn't even know who he was. But maybe that was exactly why he felt this need to help. Because it wasn't a transaction. There was no expectation of a return. There was nothing but the opportunity to do the right thing for the simple reason that it was the right thing. He picked up his phone and called Carla again. "I need you to arrange a few things for me," he said, and there was a determination in his voice that hadn't been there hours before. "We're going to help this woman, but it has to be done the right way. I don't want to humiliate her. I don't want it to seem like charity. We have to preserve her dignity." On the other end, Carla was silent for a moment. Then, her voice slightly choked up, she replied, "Yes, Mr. Thompson, I'll take care of everything." Ryan hung up and went back to looking at the city. Down there, somewhere among those millions of lights, Maria was probably on her way home after another day of work, carrying a burden alone that no one should have to carry. Maybe she was visiting her son at the hospital, sitting by his bed, holding his small hand while promising that everything would be okay, even without knowing how she would keep that promise. But not for much longer. Ryan had made his decision. Now it was just a matter of executing it the right way. He thought of his own mother, who had passed away a few years ago. She used to say that a man's success wasn't measured by what he accumulated, but by what he gave back. Ryan had always found that too romantic, too idealistic for the real world. But maybe she was right. Maybe the true test of character wasn't what you do when everyone is watching, but what you do when only you and your conscience know the truth. What he didn't know yet was that this decision wouldn't just save one life. It would save 3, including his own. The early morning in New York had a peculiar silence, that moment between the night that never fully sleeps and the day that hasn't yet been born, when even a metropolis of millions allows for a breath. Ryan had been awake for hours, sitting in the armchair by the hotel room window, watching the city gradually come to life as the sun still insisted on hiding behind the buildings. Carla had sent an email during the night with a detailed plan. Ryan opened the document on his tablet and read every word carefully. She had done the work with the precision he expected, but also with a sensitivity that surprised him. It wasn't just a business plan. It was a rescue plan carefully crafted to preserve Maria's dignity while providing the help she desperately needed. The Employee Emergency Fund had formerly existed at the hotel for 5 years, created at the suggestion of the Human Resources Department as a way to handle personal crises that could affect professional performance. Ryan had approved it, but he had never paid much attention to the details of its operation. Now he realized that fund could be the perfect solution. It wouldn't be charity from a rich businessman to a poor employee. It would be an institutional benefit, something she would deserve for her exemplary performance. But Carla had gone further. She proposed that Maria be formally evaluated for her work over the past few weeks, receiving official recognition for her dedication and competence. This would create a solid professional justification for using the emergency fund in her case. It wouldn't be a favor. It would be an investment in proven talent. Ryan smiled as he read. Carla knew him too well. She knew he needed a logical structure, a narrative that made sense in the business world he inhabited. But she also knew that beneath the need for logic, something more human was happening. She had created the perfect bridge between the two worlds. At 7 a.m., Ryan called her. "I've read the plan," he said without preamble. "It's perfect. Let's start today. I want you to coordinate Maria's performance reviews with the kids' club management. I need solid documentation showing she's excellent at what she does, and I want a meeting with her scheduled for tomorrow at 11 a.m. in the 18th floor conference room." Carla hesitated on the other end. "Mr. Thompson, may I ask a personal question?" Ryan tensed. Carla rarely asked personal questions. "You may. Are you okay? I mean, this situation with Maria seems to have affected you in a way I haven't seen in years. I'm worried. But also, if I may say so, I'm happy to see it." Ryan was silent for a moment. He didn't know how to answer because He wasn't sure of the answer himself. Was he okay? Probably not. Was he different? Definitely. Better or worse? He didn't know yet. I don't know either, Carla, he finally admitted. But I need to do this. Not for her, or not just for her. For me, too. Does that make sense? It makes perfect sense, she replied, and there was something motherly in her voice. I'll take care of everything. And Mr. Thompson, I'm proud of you. Ryan hung up with a lump in his throat. When was the last time someone had said that to him? When was the last time he had done something that deserved pride beyond profit on a balance sheet? He spent the rest of the morning watching the hotel operate, but his mind was elsewhere. He thought about how to reveal his identity to Maria without scaring her, without making her feel manipulated or indebted. He thought about how to explain that he had tested her honesty, that he had invaded her privacy by hearing her cry, that he knew about her silent tragedy. Around 10, he decided to go to the kids' club. He didn't have a specific plan. He just wanted to see her, to confirm that all of this was real and not some projection of his own emotional neediness, turning an ordinary employee into something she wasn't. Maria was there, as always. Today she was looking after 2 siblings, a 4-year-old boy and a 6-year-old girl. Their parents must have been at some business event, enjoying the hotel's services. The boy wanted to play hide and seek. The girl wanted to draw. Maria divided her attention between them with infinite patience, running after one, then sitting next to the other to praise her drawing. Ryan watched from a distance for a few minutes. There was a quiet beauty in the scene. Maria wasn't just doing her job. She was truly present, genuinely interested in those children, genuinely committed to making them happy and safe. How many people do their job with that level of dedication when no one important is watching? That's when he noticed it. Maria was constantly glancing at the clock, not obviously, but her eyes sought the time every few minutes. There was a tension in her shoulders, a rigidity in her posture that wasn't there on other days. Something was wrong, more wrong than it already was. Ryan felt a tightness in his chest. He left discreetly and called Carla. "Find out what's going on," he ordered. "The boy's condition, now." Carla didn't question him. "I'll call the hospital and try to get some information." 15 minutes later, she called back. Her voice was grave. "Gabriel's condition worsened during the night," she said. "Maria got a call from the hospital at 6 this morning. The doctors said the surgery can't wait any longer. They're trying to stabilize him, but it's urgent, very urgent." Ryan closed his eyes. "How much time do we have?" "Days. Maybe a week, if we're lucky. Maybe less." "Change the plans," he commanded. "We can't wait until tomorrow. I need to talk to her today, now." "Mr. Thompson, she's working. We can't just pull her from her duties without a reason." "Then make one up. Say management needs to speak with her about an emergency evaluation, anything. But it has to be now, Carla. The boy doesn't have time." There was a pause. "All right, I'll arrange it." "Half an hour." "Half an hour," Ryan confirmed. He went back to his room and changed. Not as Charles Miller, the ordinary guest, but as Ryan Thompson, the owner. He put on his best suit, the Swiss watch, the Italian shoes. He combed his hair back, shaved. He looked in the mirror and saw the businessman the world knew. But beneath the expensive clothes and confident posture was a man scared of what he was about to do. The 18th floor conference room was small but elegant, all tempered glass with a view of the city. Ryan arrived first, ordered coffee, then changed his mind and asked for water. His hands were sweating. When was the last time he'd been nervous before a meeting? Maria arrived at exactly 11:30, accompanied by Paula, the kids' club manager. She looked confused, apprehensive. She wore her impeccable navy blue uniform, but there were dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't hide. Ryan realized she probably hadn't slept. Paula made the introductions formally, unaware they weren't necessary. "Maria, this is Mr. Ryan Thompson, the owner of the Grand Elysian. Mr. Thompson, this is Maria Sanchez, our newest professional in the kids' club." Maria extended her hand automatically, but Ryan saw the exact moment she recognized him. Her eyes widened slightly. The color drained from her face. She looked from Ryan to Paula and back to Ryan, trying to process what this meant. Thank you, Paula, Ryan said calmly. I need to speak with Maria in private. It's about confidential matters related to a special company program. Paula nodded and left, closing the door behind her. Ryan and Maria were alone in the glass-walled room, with all of New York stretching out around them, oblivious to the silent drama unfolding within. Please, have a seat, Ryan said, indicating a chair. Maria remained standing, her hands clasped in front of her. Her voice came out low, trembling. You were the guest, Mr. Charles. Miller, that was you. It was, Ryan confirmed. Please sit down. I promise this will all make sense. She sat down slowly, as if the movement took immense effort. Ryan could see she was trying to understand, trying to figure out what she had done wrong, if she was about to be fired, if the test had been a trap she hadn't seen. Maria, he began, choosing his words carefully. I checked into the hotel in disguise because I needed to see how things really work when the owner isn't around. It was nothing personal against you or any specific employee. But something happened that I didn't expect. She looked at him with those brown eyes that carried the weight of the world. She said nothing. I saw you work, Ryan continued. I saw your dedication, your honesty, your character. And then I overheard a conversation I shouldn't have, a call from the hospital about your son. Maria's expression changed instantly. Confusion gave way to panic, then shame. She turned pale, began to speak rapidly. Mr. Thompson, I am so sorry. I never let my personal situation interfere with my work. I swear. The children always have my full attention. I would never ever neglect my duty because of personal problems. Please don't fire me. I need this job. My son needs it. Please. Maria, he interrupted gently, you're not being fired. Quite the opposite. She stopped, confused again. What do you mean? Ryan took a deep breath. This was it. I know about Gabriel. I know he's sick, that he needs an urgent surgery you can't afford. I know you're working yourself to the bone trying to save money that will never be enough in time. And I know that even with all of that, even with your world falling apart, you maintained your absolute integrity. You could have taken that money I left in the room. No one would have known. I probably wouldn't have even noticed. But you didn't, because that's not who you are. Maria was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face as she wrung her hands. I don't understand, she whispered. What do you want from me? Nothing, Ryan replied, and he realized it was true. I don't want anything from you. I want to give something to you. The hotel has an emergency fund for employees in critical situations. After reviewing your performance over the last few weeks, which has been exceptional, management has decided to approve the use of that fund to fully cover the cost of Gabriel's surgery. The silence that followed was absolute. Maria stared at him as if he had spoken in another language, as if the words didn't make sense when put together that way. I can't accept that, she said finally, her voice broken. It's too much. It's too much. I don't deserve it. I've only worked here for 3 weeks. How can it be for performance? This is charity and I can't accept. Charity. It's not charity, Ryan countered, leaning forward. It's recognition. You are exactly the kind of professional we want in this company. Dedicated, ethical, committed. Investing in you isn't a favor. It's good business, and it's not for free. In return, after Gabriel recovers, you will continue to work here. More than that, we're promoting you to a leadership position in the Kids Club. We want you to train other professionals, to set the standard of excellence based on what you already naturally demonstrate. Maria shook her head, still in disbelief. But you barely know me. How can you trust me like this? How do you know I won't just take the money and disappear? Ryan smiled for the first time. Because I saw who you are when you thought no one was looking. I saw you fall apart and then put yourself back together. I saw you preserve your dignity when it would have been so easy to lose it. I trust you because you've already proven who you are. Maria's tears wouldn't stop. She covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs she had held back for too long. All the pressure, all the desperation, all the fear she had carried alone was finally finding a way out. Ryan waited. He let her cry, didn't try to comfort or rush her. There was something sacred in that weeping, something that needed to happen. After a few minutes, Maria composed herself a little, drying her face with the backs of her hands. "Why?" she asked, looking directly at him. "Why are you doing this? People like you don't do this, not without wanting something in return." The question hit Ryan hard. It was fair. In the world he lived in, nobody gave anything for free. Everything was a transaction. Everything had a price, everything was calculated. But how could he explain that sometimes an ajar door and a desperate phone call can change everything? How could he explain that sometimes you have to save someone to realize you need to be saved too? "Because I've spent my life building an empire but forgot to build a soul," he answered, and the raw honesty of his own words surprised him. "Because I saw in you something I'd lost in myself. Because your son deserves a chance and you deserve not to have to choose between your job and his life. And because, frankly, I need to believe there's still good in the world and you showed me there is." Maria watched him for a long moment. Something was changing in her face, suspicion giving way to a cautious, fragile, but real hope. "When?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. "When can we do the surgery?" Ryan took out his phone and showed her a series of emails Carla had organized while they were talking. "I'm already in touch with the best specialists in New York. Dr. Frank Miller at Mount Sinai Hospital is considered one of the best pediatric surgeons in the country. He's already reviewed Gabriel's case this morning. We can schedule the surgery for the day after tomorrow, if you agree." Maria read the emails, her hands trembling so much she could barely hold the phone. "The day after tomorrow," she repeated, as if testing if the words were real. "Gabriel can have surgery the day after tomorrow." "He can," Ryan confirmed. "And it's going to be okay. It will be a long and delicate procedure, but Dr. Miller is the best. Gabriel has every chance." "What if it's not okay?" she asked, and there was so much fear in that question that Ryan felt a physical pain in his chest. "What if I lose him?" "You won't lose him," Ryan said with a conviction he didn't know where he found. "I won't let you. We will do everything, absolutely everything in our power, and it will be okay because it has to be okay." Maria closed her eyes, taking several deep breaths. When she opened them again, there was determination there alongside the fear. "Okay," she said. "Okay, let's do this. For Gabriel, please tell me I'm not dreaming. Please tell me this is real." "It's real," Ryan assured her. "As real as it gets. You just have to say yes and let me handle the rest." She nodded, still crying, but now they were different tears, not of despair, but of relief, of hope, of a gratitude so profound that words couldn't express it. "Yes," she said. "Yes, thank you, thank you. I don't know how I'll ever repay this. I don't know how I'll ever thank you enough. But I will work. I will dedicate myself. I will do everything in my power to deserve this." "You already deserve it," Ryan said simply. "Now go home, get some rest, be with your son. I'll send all the details by email. The surgery is on Thursday at 7 a.m. I'll be there." Maria stood up, still a bit shaky. She walked to the door, then stopped and turned. "Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice firmer now, "you saved my son's life. But more than that, you gave me back my hope. I will not forget this. Ever." Ryan couldn't answer. He just nodded. Maria left, closing the door softly behind her. He was alone in the glass-walled room, looking down at the city below that remained indifferent to the small revolutions happening in individual hearts. He picked up his phone and called Carla. "It's done," he said. "The surgery is on Thursday. I need you to arrange everything. Best available room, full team, whatever is necessary." "I'm already on it," she replied. "Mr. Thompson, you did the right thing." He hung up and continued to look at the city. He did the right thing. Did he? Or had he done something terribly selfish, inserting himself into Maria and Gabriel's lives in a way that would change everything forever? Had he thought about the consequences? The fact that if something went wrong, it would be his fault too. But then he thought of Maria's face when she realized there was hope. He thought of the tears of relief, the possibility of a future that hadn't existed minutes before. And he thought that even if there was selfishness in his motives, even if there was fear and uncertainty on the path ahead, some things just had to be done. because the alternative, watching passively while a child lost his chance to live because his mother didn't have money, was unacceptable. It was a cruelty he was no longer willing to tolerate. Ryan spent the rest of the day organizing details. He called Dr. Miller personally, confirmed the procedures, reviewed every step of the surgical plan. He spoke with the hospital administration, ensuring everything would be done with the utmost attention and care. He went over the costs with Carla, signed authorizations, moved the necessary funds. When night fell again over New York, he was exhausted, but also, in a strange way, more alive than he had felt in years. There was something energizing about doing something that truly mattered, something beyond increasing profits or expanding business. There was a purpose he hadn't known was missing. He thought about calling Maria to check if she was okay, but decided against it. She needed time with her son, needed to process everything that had happened. Thursday would come soon enough. That night, for the first time in weeks, Ryan slept without waking up in the middle of the night. The undefined restlessness, the feeling that something was wrong, was gone. Maybe because finally, after so long, something was right. On Thursday morning, he woke up before his alarm. The sky was clear, one of those rare New York days when the sun manages to pierce through the pollution and light up the city with an almost magical clarity. He dressed carefully, had a quick coffee, and drove to Mount Sinai Hospital. Maria was already there, in Gabriel's room. Ryan paused at the door, watching for a moment before entering. She was sitting on the edge of the boy's bed, holding his small hand, talking to him softly. The boy had light brown hair like his mother, large, curious eyes despite his illness, and a shy smile that lit up his face when he saw Ryan walk. "Joyce, Mummy, who's that man?" Gabriel asked with the frankness of a child. Maria looked at Ryan, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "This is Mr. Ryan, Gabriel. He's the reason you're going to be okay." Gabriel studied Ryan with the seriousness of a child who has spent too much time in hospitals. "Are you going to fix my tummy?" he asked. "Not me, directly," Ryan replied, approaching the bed. "But a very good doctor is going to, and I'll be here with your mum, waiting for you when you get out of surgery, okay?" Gabriel nodded, then held out his small hand. "Thank you," he said simply. Ryan shook that tiny hand and felt something break inside him. When was the last time someone had trusted him so completely, so unreservedly? When was the last time he had been absolutely certain he was doing the right thing? The medical team came in then, polite but efficient. It was time. Maria kissed her son's forehead, whispered something Ryan couldn't hear, then stepped back as they wheeled Gabriel away. The child waved to her from the gurney, still smiling despite the fear Ryan knew he must be feeling. When the door closed and Gabriel was out of sight, Maria finally let the tears fall. Ryan didn't know what to do. He wasn't good with emotional displays, but he placed a hand on her shoulder in an awkward gesture of comfort. "He's going to be okay," he said, wishing he had the certainty his voice tried to convey. "He has to be," Maria replied, her voice broken. "He's all I have. If I lose him, I don't know how I'll go on." "You won't lose him," Ryan said. "I promise." It was a promise he had no right to make, a guarantee he couldn't give. But he said it anyway because some lies are necessary. Some hopes need to be sustained even when logic says they are too fragile to bear the weight. They went to the waiting room, an impersonal space with overly comfortable chairs and bad coffee. Ryan called Carla, gave her updates. Maria sat in silence, staring blankly at the wall. An hour passed, then 2, 3, 4. The surgery was long, Dr. Miller had warned them, but every passing minute felt like an eternity. Ryan tried to work on his laptop, answer emails, but his mind couldn't focus. He glanced at Maria from time to time, seeing the tension build in her body, the way she clenched her hands, how she took deep breaths every few seconds, as if trying to stay calm through sheer force of will. As the 5th hour was nearly complete, the door opened. Dr. Miller walked in, still in his scrubs, a mask hanging around his neck. His face was serious, but not devastated. Ryan stood up, feeling his heart race. Maria did the same, gripping the arm of a chair to stay upright. "The surgery went well," Dr. Miller said, and those 4 words were like oxygen after drowning. The procedure was long and delicate, But we managed to correct the structural anomalies. Gabriel is stable. He'll need time to recover. It will be a gradual process, but the prognosis is good." Maria let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. She covered her mouth with her hands, her legs giving way. Ryan caught her before she fell, helping her sit down again. She looked at him, and in that look was a gratitude so deep it hurt. "When can I see him?" she asked the doctor, her voice trembling. "He's still in recovery, but in a few hours you'll be able to see him in the ICU. The next few days will be critical, but if everything continues as it is, he's going to make a full recovery." After the doctor left, Maria and Ryan were alone again in the waiting room. She was crying silently, but now they were tears of relief, of hope, of gratitude. Ryan felt his own eyes well up, something that hadn't happened in so long he'd forgotten what it felt like. "He's going to be okay," Maria said, more to herself than to him. "My baby is going to be okay." "He is," Ryan confirmed, "and so are you." She looked at him, really looked at him, as if seeing him for the first time beyond the mask of the successful businessman. "Who are you?" she asked softly. "I mean, I know who you are. But who are you, really? Why did you do all this?" Ryan didn't have an easy answer to that question. It wasn't charity, it wasn't guilt, it wasn't a business strategy. It was something more complicated, more human. It was the realization that being alive meant more than just existing. That success without purpose was a gilded cage, that sometimes you have to save someone to discover you need to be saved too. "I'm someone who was lost, and you helped me find my way," he finally answered. "I'm someone who built walls so high he forgot there was a world on the other side. And you, without knowing it, showed me a crack in those walls. That's why I did it. Not for you, not just for you. For me, too." Maria smiled, a small but genuine smile. "Then I guess we saved each other." "I guess we did," Ryan agreed. They sat there in the impersonal waiting room of a New York hospital, two strangers who were no longer strangers, two lives that had become unexpectedly and irreversibly intertwined. Outside, the city continued its indifferent routine. But in here, something had changed. Something had been mended in two hearts broken in different ways. And when they finally allowed Maria to see Gabriel, when Ryan stood at the door watching mother and son reunited, when he saw the relief and love in that careful embrace, so as not to hurt the boy still fragile from surgery, he knew he had made the right decision. Whatever it cost, whatever it was worth, that moment alone paid for it all. Gabriel opened his eyes slowly, saw his mother, and smiled weakly. "Hi, Mom," he whispered. "Am I okay?" "Yes, my love," Maria answered, crying and laughing at the same time. "You're okay, and you're going to be even better." The boy looked past his mother and saw Ryan. "Thank you, Mr. Ryan," he said, his voice faint but sincere. Ryan just nodded, not trusting his own voice. He slipped out, leaving mother and son to their moment. In the hallway, he leaned against the wall, took a deep breath, and felt the weight he had been carrying for so long finally begin to lift. He had saved a life. But in the process, maybe he had saved two, and one of them was his own. The first rays of sun entering the hospital room window had a different quality. It wasn't just light, it was a promise. Gabriel had spent 5 days in the ICU, each one an eternity of interwoven hope and fear. But on that Tuesday morning, when Ryan entered the room for the first time since the surgery, the boy was sitting up in bed, eating Jell-O and talking animatedly with the nurse about dinosaurs. Maria was beside him, as always. Ryan had discovered she barely left the hospital, sleeping in an uncomfortable armchair next to her son's bed, refusing to go home even when the nurses insisted. She had deep circles under her eyes, and her clothes were wrinkled, but her eyes shone in a way he hadn't seen before. It was relief, mixed with a happiness so profound it seemed to radiate from her. "Mr. Ryan," Gabriel shouted upon seeing him, and the excitement in his voice made Ryan's heart ache. "Come see. I ate all by myself today. The nurse lady said I'm really strong." Ryan approached the bed, feeling awkward but genuinely happy. "That's great, Gabriel. You're a champion." The boy beamed. that wide smile children have when they're truly happy, without filters or reservations. My mum said when I get better, you're going to show me the hotel. Is that true? Ryan looked at Maria, who smiled shyly. He asked, she explained. He said he wanted to see where I work. I hope you don't mind that I mentioned it. Of course. It's true, Ryan replied, turning back to Gabriel. When you're all better, I'll give you a full tour. There's a rooftop pool, a game room, even a private movie theater. You'll love it. Gabriel clapped his hands, then winced and put a hand on his stomach. Maria tensed immediately, but the boy smiled to reassure her. It's okay, Mom, I just forgot I can't jump yet. Careful, my love, Maria said, adjusting the pillow behind him. You're still recovering. Ryan stayed for another half hour, talking about dinosaurs, about the hotel, about simple things he hadn't talked about in decades. There was something healing in that simplicity, in the way Gabriel saw the world with an innocence that his illness hadn't managed to destroy. When he finally said goodbye and left, he felt lighter than when he had arrived. In the hallway, he ran into Dr. Miller reviewing charts. Ryan approached him with the anxiety of someone who needs confirmation even when the signs are good. Doctor, what's Gabriel's real prognosis? The doctor smiled, a tired but genuine smile. Mr. Thompson, I can say with confidence that the boy will make a full recovery. The surgery was an absolute success. Of course, he'll need follow-up for some time, medications, dietary adjustments, but the expectation is for a normal life. He was very lucky. It wasn't luck, Ryan replied. It was you, and a mother who never gave up. And a stranger who decided to help, Dr. Miller added, looking at Ryan searchingly. I know who you are, Mr. Thompson, everyone does. And I also know that what you did for that family goes beyond any corporate or social obligation. That was pure humanity. We need more of that in the world. Ryan nodded, embarrassed, and left. He wasn't used to. Compliments that weren't about his business, about his financial success. He didn't know how to process recognition for simply doing the right thing. In the following days, Ryan found himself visiting the hospital more often than he had planned. He told himself it was to monitor the progress of his investment, to ensure everything was being done correctly. But he knew it was a lie. He went because he enjoyed it. He enjoyed seeing Gabriel get better every day. He enjoyed talking with Maria about trivial things. He enjoyed feeling part of something that wasn't work or strategy. A week after the surgery, Gabriel was discharged. Ryan arranged everything so Maria wouldn't have to worry about a thing. A private car to an apartment he had rented for her, closer to the hotel, and much nicer than where she lived before. He also provided the necessary medications, scheduled the follow-up appointments, and made sure everything was in order. Maria tried to protest, to say it was too much, that she didn't deserve it. But Ryan was firm. It was part of the package, he explained. Employees in leadership positions needed proper conditions to perform their duties well. And yes, she was officially promoted. When she was ready to return, she would take over as coordinator of the kids' club. In the new apartment, Gabriel was amazed. It was just a simple 2-bedroom, but to him it was a palace. It had a balcony with a city view, hardwood floors, a fully equipped kitchen. The boy ran from room to room, exploring every corner despite his mother's instructions to take it easy. Is this my room? He asked, looking at one of the bedrooms Ryan had furnished with a bed, a desk and a bookshelf full of children's books. It's yours, Maria confirmed, her eyes full of tears again. Ryan only stayed for a few minutes, not wanting to intrude on their moment. But before he left, Gabriel hugged him. It was a quick, awkward hug because the boy was still recovering. But it was real, and Ryan, who couldn't remember the last time someone had hugged him like that, felt something inside him break and rebuild itself at the same time. Thanks for everything, Gabriel whispered. You're my hero. Ryan couldn't answer. He just ruffled the boy's hair and left quickly, before anyone could see the tears that were insisting on forming. The following weeks were a time of adjustment and discovery. Maria stayed home with Gabriel during his initial recovery, tracking every small bit of progress with joy and gratitude. Ryan sent her daily updates about the hotel, detailed reports from the kids' club, keeping her informed but without any pressure to return. He himself was spending more time at the Grand Elysian, but now not as an undercover investigator, but as a visible, present owner, attentive to the details he had once ignored. And the more time he spent there, the more he saw things that needed to change. The small dishonesties he had witnessed as Charles Miller weren't individual failings, he now realized. They were symptoms of an organizational culture that he himself had created. A culture that valued results over people, that measured success only in profit, that treated employees as replaceable resources rather than human beings with complex lives and real challenges. Ryan began to implement profound changes. He expanded the emergency fund, created psychological support programs, and established more direct channels of communication between employees and management. He instituted a policy of flexibility for parents who needed to care for sick children. He raised base salaries, improved benefits, and created an environment where people felt valued, not just for what they produced, but for who they were. They weren't revolutionary changes, but they were sincere. And the employees noticed. The atmosphere at the hotel began to shift subtly. People smiled more, worked with more enthusiasm, treated guests with more genuineness. The turnover rate dropped drastically. The hotel's reviews improved, and paradoxically, profits increased. Ryan was discovering that treating people with humanity wasn't just ethical, it was also good for business. Carla watched it all with quiet approval. One day, during a meeting about the new programs, she made a comment that stuck with Ryan. "You know, Mr. Thompson, in 15 years of working with you, this is the first time I've seen you truly happy. Not successful, you've always been that, but happy. It's different." Ryan didn't reply, but he knew she was right. There was a lightness to his days now, a purpose that went beyond numbers on a balance sheet. He woke up in the morning thinking not just about profits and expansion, but about how he could make the work environment better, how he could help, how he could be more human. After a month, Maria returned to work, not immediately to her old pace, but gradually, a few hours a day, while Gabriel continued to recover at home with a caregiver Ryan had hired. When she walked into the hotel for the first time as coordinator, Ryan organized a small welcome ceremony. The kids' club team was gathered along with a few managers from other departments. Ryan gave a short but heartfelt speech, talking about professional excellence, about ethics, about how Maria represented the values he wanted to see throughout the organization. He didn't mention the details of her personal story, respecting her privacy, but he made it clear that she deserved this position because of her competence, not favoritism. Maria was nervous, Ryan could see, but when she began to speak, thanking them for the opportunity and committing to do her best work, there was a confidence in her that hadn't been there before. It wasn't just gratitude, it was the certainty that she was capable, that she deserved to be there, that she had value beyond her circumstances. In the following months, Maria proved she was more than up to the promotion. She implemented new safety protocols, created training programs, and improved communication with parents. The kids' club, which was already good, became exceptional. Other hotels in the chain began asking to replicate her methods, and Maria did it all with a humility and dedication that inspired everyone around her. But what surprised Ryan was how she changed him too. Maria had a way of seeing things that he had lost over the years. When a problem arose, she thought first of the people involved, then of the procedures. When an employee failed, she investigated the reasons before punishing. When someone excelled, she recognized them publicly. Ryan began to adopt some of these methods in his own management. In board meetings, he started asking not just about numbers, but about the well-being of the teams. When he visited other hotels in the chain, he talked to employees at all levels, not just managers. He listened to complaints, suggestions, personal stories, and he discovered that the more he listened, the more he understood, and the more he understood, the better a leader he became. Gabriel was also recovering wonderfully. His hair had grown back, the color had returned to his face. The energy of a healthy child was back. Ryan kept his promise and took the boy to see the hotel on a Saturday morning, when it was quieter. It was supposed to be a quick tour, an hour maybe. But Gabriel had so many questions, so much genuine curiosity about everything, that it ended up lasting the whole morning. Ryan took him to see the kitchen where the chefs were charmed by the boy and let him help decorate a cake. He showed him the rooftop pool, the game room, the private cinema where they watched an animated movie, just the two of them. Maria accompanied them, watching. The interaction between her son and the man who had become so important in their lives. There was something touching in seeing Ryan, the ruthless businessman, patiently explaining to a 7-year-old how the hotel's air conditioning system worked. At the end of the day, as they were leaving, Gabriel stopped and looked at Ryan with that seriousness children sometimes have. "Mr. Ryan, can I ask you something?" "Of course, Gabriel. You can ask me anything." "Do you have kids?" The question caught Ryan off guard. "No," he replied after a pause. "I never had children." "Why not?" Ryan looked at Maria, who seemed as curious as her son, for the answer. "I think I spent my life so focused on work that I forgot to build a family," he answered honestly. "And now that I realize it, it feels too late." Gabriel thought for a moment, then said with the simple logic of a child, "But you have me and my mum now, isn't that kind of like a family?" Ryan felt something tighten in his chest. He looked at Maria, saw the tears forming in her eyes. "Yes, it is, Gabriel," he replied, his own voice choked with emotion. "I think it is." The boy smiled, satisfied, and took Ryan's hand in one of his and his mother's in the other. "Then it's all okay. Now you have a family." Those words echoed in Ryan's mind in the days that followed. A family. He had built an empire, but had never built a family. And now, without planning it, without expecting it, he had found one. Not of blood, but of choice. And maybe, he thought, that was the truest form of family. The months turned into seasons. New York's winter gave way to spring, and Gabriel went back to school, this time to a good private school that Ryan insisted on paying for as part of Maria's benefits package. The boy flourished, making friends, getting good grades, living the life he had almost lost. Ryan started having dinner regularly with Maria and Gabriel. At first they were formal, almost professional dinners where he felt out of place and awkward. But gradually they became more natural. He learned to relax, to laugh at Gabriel's silly jokes, to help Maria in the kitchen, to simply be present without thinking about business or strategies. One Saturday night, a few months after the surgery, the three of them were in Maria's apartment watching a movie when Gabriel fell asleep on the sofa, his head resting on Ryan's shoulder. Maria smiled at the sight. "He trusts you completely," she said softly. "I've never seen him so at ease with anyone but me." Ryan looked at the sleeping boy, his peaceful face, his steady breathing. He felt a love so deep it hurt. When was the last time he had felt anything like this? When was the last time he had allowed himself to love someone without fear, without calculation, without protection? "I trust you, too," Maria continued, and there was something different in her voice now. "Not just as my boss or as the person who saved my son. I trust you as a person, as a friend, as family." Ryan looked at her, really looked. Maria wasn't just the dedicated employee he had decided to help. She was a strong, intelligent, compassionate woman who had faced adversities that would have destroyed less resilient people and emerged still capable of loving, of trusting, of being kind. "Maria," he began, his voice hesitant in a way that was uncharacteristic of him, "I need to tell you something I've been feeling but didn't know how to express." She looked at him, attentive. "When I met you, when I saw who you really were, something changed in me," Ryan continued. "It wasn't instant, not like in the movies. It was gradual, but it was real. You showed me that I had become someone I didn't want to be, someone hard, cold, incapable of feeling. And you showed me there was still time to change." Maria remained silent, letting him find the words. "But more than that," Ryan took a deep breath. "You showed me what's truly important. It's not money, it's not success, it's not power, it's this moment right now. With Gabriel asleep on my shoulder, with you by my side, watching a silly movie on a Saturday night. It's having someone who cares if you're okay, who's happy when you come home, who makes you want to be a better person. It's having a family." Maria had tears in her eyes now. "Ryan," she whispered, I know our story started in an unusual way, he went on. I know there are differences between us, that the circumstances are complicated. But I also know that you two have become the most important people in my life, and I want to be present, not as a distant benefactor, not as a generous boss, but as a real part of this family that Gabriel said we are. Maria smiled through her tears. You're already part of this family, Ryan. You have been since the moment you decided to help without expecting anything in return, since the moment you cared. Ryan felt a weight he had carried for so long finally release. It wasn't just about saving Gabriel, he realized. It was about saving himself. It was about allowing himself to feel again, to love again, to be human again. That night, after Gabriel woke up and went to bed, Ryan stayed a little longer. He and Maria talked about everything and nothing, about the past, about the future, about dreams and fears. There was an ease between them now, a trust that came from having gone through something so intense together and survived not just intact, but transformed. When he finally left, it was late. But Ryan didn't mind. He drove through the empty streets of New York feeling more complete than he ever had. He had found something he didn't know he was looking for. He had found a purpose that went beyond profit and loss. He had found a family. The years that followed were ones of growth and transformation. The Grand Elysian prospered even more, not just financially but in reputation and organizational culture. It became known not only for the quality of its services, but for the exceptional way it treated its employees. Other business owners started seeking out Ryan, wanting to know the secret to his success. He always gave the same answer: treat people like people, not resources. Gabriel grew up healthy and strong. His follow-up appointments showed that the surgery had been a complete success. He wouldn't need any more interventions. He could live a normal life, play sports, dream about the future. And he did dream. He wanted to be an architect, he said, to build beautiful buildings like Uncle Ryan's hotel. Uncle Ryan. That's what Gabriel started calling him naturally, without anyone suggesting it. And Ryan, who never imagined he would like being called that, discovered it was the title he was most proud of. Maria flourished in her career. She became a leading expert in managing children's services in hospitality, was invited to speak at conferences, and wrote articles for trade magazines. But she never lost her humility, never forgot where she came from, never let success change who she was. And what about her and Ryan? Their relationship evolved naturally, without rush, without pressure. It began as gratitude, transformed into friendship, and deepened into something more. There was no dramatic moment of revelation. It was gradual, organic, inevitable. At some point, they simply realized they couldn't imagine life without each other. They married in a small, intimate ceremony, with just family and close friends in a flower-filled garden in New York on a perfect spring morning. Gabriel was the ring-bearer, radiant in the small suit he insisted on choosing himself, carrying the rings with seriousness and pride. Carla cried through the whole ceremony, happy to see the man she had known for so long finally find the peace and love he had always deserved, but never allowed himself to seek. Ryan never went back to his empty, impersonal penthouse, that luxurious but cold space that represented everything he used to be. He moved into the apartment with Maria and Gabriel, and together, they turned that space into a true home, a home full of life, of laughter, of love, a home where he finally truly belonged. One evening, years after that day that changed everything, Ryan was sitting on the apartment balcony, looking at the lights of New York. Maria came and sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "About how it all started," he replied, "with an ajar door and a desperate phone call, with a test of honesty that revealed so much more than I expected, with the scariest and most right decision I ever made in my life. And do you regret any of it?" "Not a thing," Ryan said, and it was the absolute truth. "I spent 50 years building an empire, but I was empty inside. You and Gabriel showed me what really matters. You taught me that success without love is just well-funded loneliness. You gave me a reason to wake up in the morning that goes beyond reports and balance sheets." Maria smiled. "You saved our lives, Ryan. You literally saved my son's life." "And you saved mine," he replied, "in a different way, but just as real. They sat there in comfortable silence, looking at the city that had brought them together. Inside the apartment, Gabriel slept peacefully, dreaming of his future. A future that almost didn't exist, but that now stretched out, bright, before him. Ryan thought about everything that had happened, about all the impossible coincidences that had to align for this moment to exist. If he hadn't decided to stay at his own hotel, if Maria hadn't been assigned that job, if she hadn't answered that call, if he hadn't decided to help, but all those things did happen. And he had. Learned that sometimes the universe puts us exactly where we need to be, even when we don't know we need to be there. Sometimes an ajar door and a moment of shared vulnerability can change everything. Sometimes saving someone is the way you save yourself. Ryan Thompson had built an empire, but it was only when he let go of absolute control, when he allowed people into his life, when he chose love over power, that he truly understood the meaning of success. It wasn't about the size of his bank account or the number of hotels he owned. It was about having someone who cares when you come home. It was about being a child's hero, not for what you have, but for who you chose to be. It was about finding family, not in blood, but in choice, in commitment, in daily presence. And that night, sitting on the balcony with the woman he loved, knowing that inside the apartment slept the child he considered his son, Ryan Thompson finally felt whole. Not because he had everything, but because he had what truly mattered. The ajar door had revealed more than dishonesty or honesty. It had revealed a fundamental truth. That strength of character is shown not in what we do when everyone is watching, but in the choices we make when we think no one sees. And that sometimes witnessing that strength in another person can awaken something we thought was lost in ourselves. Maria and Gabriel didn't just save their own lives by accepting help, they also saved the soul of a man who had forgotten he had one. And Ryan, by choosing to help without expecting anything in return, had discovered that true profit comes not from business transactions but from human connections. Years later, when Gabriel was a young adult studying architecture, when people asked Ryan what his greatest achievement was, he never mentioned the hotel empire or the awards he had received. He always talked about the same thing, about an afternoon when he decided that people mattered more than numbers, about a surgery that saved one life and transformed three, about a family that wasn't inherited but built with love and choice. Because in the end, that's what really counted. Not what you accumulate, but what you share. Not the power you have, but the good you do. Not the inheritance you leave in bank accounts, but the lives you touch, the hearts you warm, the love you spread. And it all started with an ajar door, a desperate phone call, and a decision that some things are too important to be ignored. Some lives deserve to be saved. And sometimes in the process of saving someone, you discover you are also saving yourself. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Ryan, Maria, and Gabriel has touched your heart. If you were moved by this journey of transformation, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments what resonated with you the most. Every day we bring you intense stories like this one, which reveal the deepest side of the human soul and remind us that true wealth lies in the connections we create. Which moment in this story moved you the most? The test of honesty? The surgery? The moment Gabriel said they were a family? Share with us in the comments. We'll see you in the next episode with another story that will stir your emotions and make you reflect on what truly matters in life.